handed out a series of questions. Don't worry about trying to answer them, because hopefully we'll have a little time at the end of class to answer these and go over them. It's just all information about the topic for tonight. I've got a lot of notes, and there's some kind of deep stuff here. I'm going to try to make it as simple as I know how, because I'm a pretty simple guy. So bear with me if I delve into my notes pretty deep. I think it's fascinating information. I guess since the beginning of time, man has pondered the existence of God. He's looked off into the universe, see the stars, the planets, the moon, etc., like that, and wondered or come to the conclusion that there has to be something greater than mankind. So tonight what we're going to do is take a look at the question, does God exist? And if you're going to make the argument one way or the other, how would you go about doing it? Some people would say, well, the Bible proclaims that God exists. That's true, but to a person who doesn't believe in God, they're not going to believe in the Bible, and your argument would hold no water. Okay? So what we're going to look at tonight is some evidence, scientific evidence, a couple of arguments that you need to know in order to prove the existence of God. The atheist, when you ask them that question, the atheist says, absolutely not. God does not exist, period. A person that's a theist, that's you and I, a person who believes in God, would say, yes, God does exist, and we believe that there's ample evidence to prove His existence. The agnostic says, well, there's just probably not enough evidence either way. And the skeptic says, well, I just don't think you'll ever be able to prove it one way or the other, so I'm just not even going to worry about it. So people take different points on the argument, but truly there's only one way to answer that question, and that's to take a look at the evidence. If God exists, now think about this, if God exists, He would make evidence available to you and I to prove His existence, would He not? That's a reasonable conclusion to make. But some people would say, but we don't have any empirical evidence. Now, what do I mean by empirical? The senses, something that we can determine by any of the five senses. I can see it, I can hear it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can touch it or feel it. And that's one of the ways that science bases everything that it does, is usually on empirical evidence. And rightfully so, because we live in a universe that's composed of matter. But you know, that's not the only way. In the legal world, there's a situation called a prima facie case. You heard that term before? Most of you have if you've watched any of the TV shows. But what is a prima facie case? Basically, it's to have a prima facie case is that you may not have, for example, in a murder case, an eyewitness. Okay? But prima facie says that there is enough evidence from different sources that based on all that evidence, unless there's something that comes up that can refute that evidence, then it's considered legally to be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that'll hold up in virtually any courtroom. It's called a prima facie case. Let's take a look at one aspect of it. Have you ever heard the term cause and effect? Okay, but do you know what it really means? Some people would call it the cosmological argument, and that's true. That's basically what it is. That argument says that the universe, if you look out into the universe, it has to be one of two things. It's either a cause or it's an effect. And everything that we deal with in this empirical world or universe is either a cause or an effect. Well, you can look and reason pretty quickly that the universe is not a cause, but it is an effect. And because the universe is here, then it has to be explained. That's something every rational person, including the atheists and the agnostics, have to admit, and they will. The universe is here. We have to accept that fact, but how did it get here? That's the question. How did the universe get here? If a thing cannot create itself, the term that's used to describe it is contingent or dependent. Okay? The universe is contingent or dependent on something else to bring it into existence. It cannot, by observing the universe, it cannot explain its existence, and because it can't explain its existence, we realize then that it has to have a cause that brought it into effect. So let's look at the law of cause and effect. Natural laws, and I would agree with this, have no exceptions. They have to be proven over and over and over for them to become laws. So if we have a natural law, then there is no exception to it. Regardless of what you might see on the Science Channel, there are no exceptions to those laws. Every material effect must have an adequate cause. If something is, then something caused it. That's getting it really simple. If it is, if it exists, something caused it, brought it into existence. A material effect without an adequate cause does not exist. And the effect is never greater than the cause. For example, the river is not muddy because a frog jumped into it. Can't happen. That's not an adequate cause to produce the effect at hand. Or the book did not fall off the table because a fly landed on it. Not an adequate cause for what you've seen. And this is kind of funny, and I agree, but this is the way you have to reason these things without people trying to use the big long words and get over your head. So what caused the universe? Okay? Probable answers. And there are 3 of them here. Answer number 1. The universe is eternal. It always has existed, and it always will. That's one possible. The second one, the universe is not eternal. It created itself out of nothing. And number 3, the universe is not eternal, did not create itself from nothing. Rather, it was created by something or someone outside of and superior to itself. That's the only 3 possibilities. And I want to take a quick look at those. First of all, is the universe eternal? Well, the atheist would say, yeah, because that's a pretty doggone comfortable position for them to take, considering the fact that they don't believe that there's a God. They don't have a problem with a beginning or an end. If the universe is eternal, it's always been, it always will be eternal matter. Okay, and they avoid the dilemma of having to deal with the idea of a first cause. Remember that phrase, we'll come back to it. Now, if we're going to deal properly with this, to take a look at the universe, we're going to have to consider a couple of laws. And I know you've probably heard this before, but we're going to talk about the laws of thermodynamics. The first law, which is often called the law of the conservation of energy and or matter. simply stated, is that neither matter, that's stuff that you see, feel, touch, nor energy can be created or destroyed in nature. Okay? Nothing new being created. Nothing is being destroyed. Energy can be transformed into matter. Matter can be transformed into energy. But neither one of them can be created nor destroyed. Now the second law, which is often called the law of increasing entropy, simply says this: everything in the universe is running down or wearing out. Entropy, the word, means a randomness, a disorderliness, or an unstructuredness. Now, any scientist that has observed the universe is going to tell you it's extremely orderly. It's extremely structured. And everything that's in the universe obeys the laws of physics. So entropy means it's winding down, if you will, and eventually the universe is going to wear out. James?
I find it fascinating where the universe or where the world is. God set us to a point where just right between the sun and the other planets, because if he tilted us a little bit further from the sun, we would freeze to death. If he tilted us a little bit closer to the sun, we will burn up. So it's amazing how the order is in a way that we can survive.
Those little things like that, we could spend a whole class on that. The tilt of 23 degrees of the earth on its axis, which gives us the seasons. If that wasn't there, you know what would happen? The center of the earth, the middle, would fry and the poles would freeze. We have seasons that are resulting from that. The moon, the fact that it's there, gives us the tides. If it wasn't there, the earth would begin to wobble. It's kind of like a balance wheel, if you will. The fact that the moon circles, and we could go on and on and on with those. And we may do that some night, just talk about some of these things that are just amazing when you stop and think about them, and they couldn't have happened by accident. The second law shows us then, the second law of thermodynamics shows us that there was a point in time, a beginning point for the universe, when all the energy in the universe was available for use. But because it's winding down, there's going to come a point in time when there is no more energy available for use and the universe will die. Science knows this. If you want to look at it in a simplified way, the universe is like a gigantic watch. It's been wound up, it's starting to run, but every tick winds it down that much farther. So everything is in a state of winding down or decay. There was a NASA scientist, he's deceased now, his name was Robert Jastrow. And I'm going to read a quote from him. He says, "Modern science denies an eternal existence to the universe." By the way, he didn't believe in God. But he knows that science will not support the idea of an eternal universe, that it's always been here and always will be. So we know scientifically now that the universe is not eternal. So the next question is then, did the universe create itself out of nothing? That was proposition number 2. In times past, every responsible scientist, every school child that sat in a science class, whatever, understood clearly that nothing arises from nothing. No material thing can create itself. The universe is the created, it is not the creator. But some scientists, and I'm talking about scientists who are unbelievers, have suggested that the universe literally could have made itself from nothing. Now, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the Big Bang, that everything that's in the universe came from this mass that just suddenly, and everything came into existence. They've still got a problem. Something was there. Something was there to begin with. It didn't spring from nothing. So where did that, whatever it was that was there, how did it get there? And they still can't answer that question. It is a clear violation of the first law of thermodynamics. There is no empirical evidence anywhere that exists to show us that the universe created itself. It certainly did not. Philosophically and scientifically, the proposition is absurd. Remember that. So, third proposition, was the universe created? Okay? Either the universe had a beginning or it didn't. There's nothing anywhere in between. It either had a beginning or it did not. It was either eternal or it was created. All available evidence today indicates that there was a beginning to the universe. It is logically and scientifically correct to acknowledge that the universe had a cause. The universe is an effect that requires, get this, an adequate cause. Remember, we talked about the frog jumping in the river couldn't make it muddy. You can have an effect, but you've got to have an adequate cause. The universe is not eternal, and it did not create itself. So the only alternative is that the universe was created by something or someone that, listen close to these. Number A, whatever created the universe existed before or at the same time, or in other words, an eternal, uncaused first cause. Get that? I'm going to read it again. Let me find it again here. I've lost my place. Okay. If it was created, whatever created the universe existed before or at the same time. In other words, an eternal, uncaused first cause. B, it has to be that whatever that something is had to be superior to the universe, because the created cannot be superior to the Creator. So whatever created the universe had to be much superior to the universe. And C, this one's one I think you might find interesting, is of a different nature. It is a finite, dependent universe of matter, and it is unable to explain itself. So whatever created the universe, that force, that first cause, that thing, that someone, has certain characteristics that you can logically deduce using the scientific method. Now, think about this one for a moment. If there has ever been a time when nothing existed, there would still be nothing. And that's important to note. If there was ever a time when there was nothing, there would still be nothing, because something cannot arise from nothing. Period. Doesn't happen. So since something exists now, logically speaking, something has existed forever. But we just concluded it's not the universe. Something has always been, something is eternal, but it's not the universe. Everything that humans know to exist, everything is either matter or mind. Okay? There is no third alternative. Everything that we see, everything that we know, is either made of matter or of mind. Now here's the argument. Everything that exists is either matter or mind. Something exists now, so something eternal also exists. I hope I'm not losing you. Pastor, you're looking at me like... Everything that exists is either matter or mind. Okay? Because something exists now, well, I won't say because, but something does exist now, so that means that something eternal exists. Because whatever is now could not have come from nothing. So there has to be something eternal, some force behind what exists now. Therefore, either matter or mind is eternal. One of them has to be, matter or mind. Matter is not eternal. We know that. Matter was created. Matter cannot give rise to matter. So thus, it is the mind that is eternal. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily just your brain, but the process or the power of mind has always existed, and we'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, everything that exists is either dependent or independent, or we could say contingent or non-contingent. If it exists, it either exists of its own or something brought it into existence. The universe is not eternal, it is contingent or dependent on something for its existence. The universe is not eternal, therefore the universe is contingent. That's the argument. Now another one. If the universe is dependent, it must have been caused by something that is independent. So let's say it another way. If the universe is contingent, it had to have been caused by something that is non-contingent. Okay? But the universe is dependent. We know that. Therefore, the universe was produced by some eternal, independent force. It's the only conclusion you can draw.
Now, Eddie, to establish that fact, scientists are telling us different things in the universe are running down. For instance, the sun is gradually
Burning up.
out. We're depleting resources here on the face of the earth. Everything's going downhill. Well, apparently somebody, if they're going downhill, somebody had to wind it up. You know, just like a top. You see a top spinning at top speed when you first, let it go.
Yep.
Then it starts to wobble, and it's about to kill over, it's slowing down. Well, somebody had to wind it up to start with. And that somebody is God. And you either get back to a non-contingent material thing or a non-contingent being. Their own arguments and scientific laws prove the universe cannot be non-contingent. Therefore, it's mind over matter.
Absolutely. Good point and well said. So let's take a look at mind and matter. You've probably never heard of him, but there was a man called Sir John Eccles, that's Eccles, who won the Nobel Prize for his studies, primarily dealing with the neuron synapses in the brain. Okay? Won a Nobel Prize for these studies. He discovered that portions of the brain could be fired, if you will, fired up, without affecting the motor cortex, which moves muscles. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about intelligent thought. These synapses that are firing within the brain, a person can have no movement whatsoever, but yet that brain is still working. See, a lot of scientists want to say, well, you know, the human is made of matter, so the human brain is made of matter, so human thought is just a process of the human brain, so it falls in the same category as matter, and it does not. It's totally different. The mind is to the brain what the librarian is to the library. And you cannot reduce the librarian to the library. The librarian is far superior to and controls the things that happen within the library. And that's pretty much the way he described it as happening. So there's thoughts that go on within the human that transcend matter. And we'll come back to that thought in a couple of minutes. Scientifically, the choice is between matter only and more than matter to explain the existence and the orderliness of the universe. Now, the differences are this: time, chance, and natural properties of matter. Okay, time, chance, and the natural properties of matter versus design, creation, and undeniable properties of organization and mind. There's only two possible scientific explanations for the origin of order and life in the universe. It was imposed upon matter, or else it naturally resides in matter. Now, having said that, we know, and Wesley's made this point many times, if you take dirt and put it in a jar and set it on the shelf, what's it going to be in 1,000,000 years from now? Dirt. If I add some rocks to it and put it on the shelf, what's it going to be in 1,000,000 years? Dirt and rocks. Okay? And I could go on and on with whatever I might want to add to it, but as long as I'm putting matter in that container, in 1,000,000 years from now, it will still be the exact same thing I put it in, even though it might have decayed somewhat, broken down, because everything is winding down. We know a lot about matter, and we know that there is no orderliness in matter. We can look deep enough into it, to the atom, and we can see that the basic building blocks of matter have a great deal of order that was put there. But matter itself is totally random. If one star collides with another, or a meteorite collides with the planet, what happens? It's chaos. It's total chaos. There's no orderliness that's involved in it. So I think you get the gist of that point. So the law of cause and effect and the cosmological argument for the existence of God, based on that law, have implications in every area of human life. The universe is here, therefore it must have adequate cause. And I'm going to take just a minute to consider something. A number of years ago, a group of scientists was called to Great Britain. An amazing discovery there. And they all convened on this place, and what they found was this series of pits and stones that were set up in concentric circles and appeared to be doing something, but they couldn't figure out what. Well, this later became known as Stonehenge. And as Stonehenge was studied, it was determined that Stonehenge was built as an astronomical observatory. And by using the positions of these stones, they can observe the movement of the stars, the seasons, etc., etc., etc. And one conclusion that was drawn by this group of scientists that we can agree to today is that Stonehenge is there. It exists because of intelligent design. Now, there's some things they don't know. They don't know how they moved those stones the way they did. They don't know how they developed the mathematical principles to plot the movement of the stars. There's a lot of things they don't know. But they do know that Stonehenge is the product of intelligent design. And we can take that same proposition and compare it to the universe, compare it to life. We see intelligent design throughout the universe. We see it throughout the earth and throughout every human being and every living thing that's on the face of the earth. And that's a whole different study in and of itself. But there is intelligent design at work in the universe. Now, we as humans possess certain undeniable traits such as the ability to reason, the ability to know things, the ability to act rationally. And we can go on with those lists. So what is the origin of these traits? Where did they come from? We've got them. We know that. So where did they come from? They're not found in evolution, I can tell you that. The philosopher Norman Geisler wrote this, and this is a quote: "The cause cannot give what it does not have to give. If my mind or ability to know is received, then there must be a mind or knower who gave it to me. The intellectual does not arise from the non-intellectual. Something cannot arise from nothing." And he stated it very correctly, a philosopher of all things. So, let's conclude here real quick. Every material effect must have an adequate cause. The universe is here. Intelligent life is here. Morality is here. Love is here. So what is their adequate cause? Remember that the effect can never come before or be greater than the cause. The cause of life must be a living intelligence that is moral, ethical, and loving. Now, the only reference I'm going to make to the Bible is this. We talked about a first cause. The Bible makes known to us the first cause. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. All right, grab your questions and answers, and we'll attempt to cover these quickly. We've got about 5 minutes to do so. Anybody have a question or comment?
We could even grant them matter, not that we would. If I was in a debate, I could grant them matter. And then ask them, get life started from that which is non-living. Let's see you do it. They cannot do it. They admit this. George Wald said he's an evolutionist. We know that spontaneous generation does not occur. It's false to say it does. However, we must believe it happened at least one time, or believe the only other alternative, that God Almighty created all things. And that's true.
That's true. He said it right.
And he realizes the dilemma he's in, and I got quote after quote after quote from evolutionists saying spontaneous generation is impossible. Louis Pasteur proved it was impossible.
Yep. Good point. Okay. First one. These are true false. God can exist and not exist at the same time. That's false. The universe does exist and is real. Something that cannot create itself is called contingent. True. Science has verified that the universe had a beginning. True. Some material things do not have a cause. False. Everything has a cause. The universe created itself from nothing. The cause is always greater than its effect. True. True. Matter and mind are the same thing. False. Good. Y'all did good on that. Multiple choice. Which of the following terms applies to the universe? Eternal, dependent, self-creating, or independent? Dependent. Every material thing must have a cause described by which of the following phrases? Greater than itself, less than itself, equal to itself, or none of these? Greater than itself. Everything that exists falls into which two categories below? Matter, particle, animal, mind. Matter and mind. Matter and mind. Y'all were paying attention. Which ancient group of rocks was used for astronomical predictions? The Great Barrier Reef, the Statue of Liberty, Stonehenge, or Rock City? Stonehenge. I've wondered about Rock City. It's quite impressive. If a material thing exists, then it must have had which two of the following? Effect, cause, beginning, or car engine? Cause and a beginning. Okay. The blank exists and is blank. Let's get the first blank. The what exists? The universe exists and is okay. Contingent. Contingent. Did he? Okay. Either God blank exists or he does not blank. Either God does exist or he does not exist. There's not a middle ground. Okay? Oh, I just gave the answer to the next one. There is no blank ground. No middle ground. Okay. Number 3. If the universe did not create... If the universe did not blank itself, it must have a blank. Creator. Yeah. Okay. The first law of blank states that matter and blank can neither be blank nor destroyed. So let's go back to first. The first law of thermodynamics states that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed in nature. Number 5, the blank did not create itself. Such an idea is absurd, false, yeah, both philosophically and, yes. All right, matching. We've got a list on one side and the answers on the other side. Let's go with number 1. A case that cannot be refuted. Prima facie, that's G. Number 2, the law of cause and effect. The cosmological argument, that's E. Number 3, had a beginning and will have an end. A, the universe. And B, that's true, because it's made of matter. Number 4, the law of conservation of energy. That's the first law of thermodynamics. That's F. Number 5, cannot create itself. B, matter. Cannot create itself. Number 6, must come before or at the same time as the effect. The cause, C. Number 7, things are running down. H, that's the second law of thermodynamics. And finally, number 8, only thing that could be eternal. Mind, that's D. All right, you keep those questions. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. I enjoyed it.